In October, we were grid down here in the upstate of South Carolina, much worse up in western North Carolina. For a few days, a lot of people were wondering what should they do now that these don't work anymore. So grid down communications. I was already seeking my ham license. I wanted to go after it before Hurricane Helene came in. And to that end, and this is where everybody starts, I went out and got on Amazon and bought 2 Baofeng UV5Rs. And that's where everybody seems to start. These radios are so inexpensive that it is cheaper to throw it away and buy another one than it is to repair it if it goes down. 128 memories built into it. As far as slots, it is a dual band, 2 meter, 70 centimeter, or 140 to 440 in the frequency range, hence dual band. Most of your technicians, which is the lowest tier of ham radio license, this is where everybody starts with those 2 bands in most cases. Some start with just 1. Radios today are programmable, so you can take advantage of all of those slots and all of those frequency assignments. However, to get your ham license, you're going to have to take a test. You're going to have to pass it. And it has to be administered by somebody who has the proper credentials to administer it, to where it will be recognized by the FCC, and you'll get your call sign generated, at which point you're legitimate. There's an email that gets sent back out and everything after you've paid your licensing fee. Most of the time, the test to take for your ham license is $15, and the fee to the FCC, which is good for 10 years, is $35. And then when you tie that into 2 Baofeng UE5Rs, you're basically becoming a ham radio operator for $100. But that's not the only one. Now, the first license I got was GMRS. GMRS, when you're talking to somebody, GMRS is as good as anything out there. As a matter of fact, in a peer-to-peer situation, like if you're just talking between radio to radio, this is as good as a ham, although these only have 30 channels, and of those, 8 of those are repeaters. Now, to understand what a repeater is basically like a cell tower, and it's mesh networked. And there's more repeaters in the ham than there is in GMRS, but that doesn't matter. It just depends on what you're going to do. The GMRS license is also $35. It is also good for 10 years. The biggest issue they have is that the repeater channels are all programmed in to all of these except for the PL tones. Now, the PL tones, if you want to think of a PL tone, the PL tone is the password to get into the network. It's actually a tone. It's a numeric tone that you assign to it. You have to enter that in when you're either tuning it in by hand, or you're going to program it in as you save it into the memory of the radio. With this one, I hit about 2 repeaters, which is, in some cases, I mean, I was talking to somebody during the Hurricane Helene that was probably 70 miles away. So that's pretty good range for this little old walkie-talkie. I have 128 repeaters programmed into this little Baofeng. Now, this is not my primary walkie-talkie. I just brought this up here. I'm just showing you this because here's the one thing I would tell you if you're going to choose. Now, if you're choosing one or the other, it really is going to depend on, in a grid down situation, I think it's probably not a bad idea to have both. But this is perfectly good peer-to-peer. 2-3 miles maybe. On a nice day, you're definitely going to want to get a bigger whip antenna to go with it. But it's limited because everybody's on ham. Now, here's my advice, which is worth exactly what you're about to pay for. My primary, and they call these handy talkies. My primary handy talkie is an ICOM. There seems to be three big names in ham radio, which is ICOM, Yaesu, and Kenwood. And this one apparently will operate underwater. And in a vest, if I'm carrying it around in a vest or something and the weather is less than good for me, then this one is not going to go down. The Baofeng, you can say water around it and it probably will malfunction. This one, I chose this one because this one is a little more water resistant, but this is also a Baofeng. This is the GM15. I also have base stations, which are actually, the base stations of old used to be big affairs. Now everybody just takes a mobile radio and puts it on their bench like my two here. And that's their base station. I also have one in the car. The only other thing I'm planning on going from with this, which is, I have to have a ham radio license to do it, will be high frequency. And I will get with that later, and that'll be a tale for another day. In terms of grid down comms, I listened to the hams the entire time. I had my GMRS license. I did not have my ham license, but I did have ham radios, and I listened to them every morning to see what was going on prior to doing the radio broadcast. And they already have the reason to get a license. Here's the thing to think about. So you have a Baofeng UV5R, you bought it. You don't have a license. In truth, you can run it without a license in an emergency. However, unless you know somebody that has programmed this and you know where to go, you're out in the wilderness trying to find somebody to talk to. And if you're trying to find somebody specifically, and if you're trying to report something specifically, if you're trying to get help specifically, it'd be nice to know where to go. And this is why you get the license, because they have nets weekly. All of these repeaters have nets. They have their own little ecosystem of people. There's ARES, which is an amateur radio emergency system. There's Skywarn, which is their version of weather. And these guys are very well coordinated and all self-funded. They find a way to make it work. So if you're not interested in studying for a test, it would be helpful if everybody that you're going to be talking to is a GMRS radio holder, right? That would be helpful. This may be the radio that I would carry in a peer-to-peer movement operation, you know, some sort of small unit thing. But I'm going to have a ham radio in my pack just because of range. This radio right here, let's see if I can get a return on the repeater. That's talking to a repeater that's about 40 miles away right now. And you can hear that return coming over my base station now. That's not bad. 40 miles away. A lot of people there on the other end of that. That's the Cherokee Guardians, which I'm going to put a link in there if you want to go check them out. I'm a member of the Cherokee Guardians. They'll help you get your license. I think this is the same across the United States as far as getting a license is concerned. This is a bunch of guys that got together and they have the weather down. They put out their own weather reports. They do ARES nets on a regular basis, which ARES, the other one I listened to one where all of the hospitals in the state of South Carolina were coordinating over the ham radio network. So, not a bad tool to have in your kit. And in terms of things going grid down again, most of it in the beginning is going to be this kind of thing, the unsexy thing, the can you talk to anybody? And having one of these things, it'd be helpful to have somebody to talk to that can help you if you need it. At one point, if I'd wanted to use, and I couldn't have used it on the ham because even though it was an emergency, I wasn't going to use the ham. I knew the guy's phone number. But if I had needed it, I could have called the guys at the ham in the ham group, and they would have brought me gasoline and propane and all the other things I needed. So in terms of grid down comms, my first advice would be buy once, cry once. Simply because as you become more accustomed to the radio the ham radio world, you're going to want to reach out and hit people. You're going to want something that is more robust. But like I said, and I'm sure there's all kinds of specials going on right now for Christmas, you can get 2 Baofeng UV5R radios for less than $50. $15 for the test, $35 to the FCC. You are a ham operator. So for $100, you can become a ham operator. Once you become that, that's really just the beginning of the journey, because I would suggest to you that you go, like I got lucky. I reached out and I found somebody that would help me. And I'll guarantee you that wherever you are in the United States, there's a ham radio community out there behind you somewhere that you just don't know exists. So on the ham side, I thoroughly recommend it. I do not regret getting my GMRS license, because this will play a role as well. In fact, this gives me more ways to communicate with people, because there's some people that only have GMRS. That's my opinion, and it's worth exactly what you just paid for it. If you like this kind of content, and I really do hope you do, give me a thumbs up, maybe subscribe, and we'll be back soon. Got lots of other things to test at the moment. I'm out of here.